Commander Zephyros stood in the briefing room of the Hegemony Intelligence Station. The walls around him glowed with a soft blue light. His 4 arms moved in nervous patterns as he read the datapad in front of him. The mission seemed simple enough, but something about it made his skin change color with worry. "Humans," he whispered to himself. The word felt strange in his mouth. The Corvani had been watching the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They were good at it. Their skin could change to match any surface. Their eyes could see in 12 different light types. Most importantly, they were patient. They could wait and watch for years without moving. But humans were different. They had joined the Galactic Council only 50 years ago. Most new species took at least 500 years to learn space war. Humans learned it in decades. This made the Council nervous. Zephyros had studied the files. Humans came from a planet called Earth. It was a death world, a place where everything tried to kill everything else. Most species came from safe worlds where life was easy. Not humans. They grew up fighting. The door to the briefing room opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Corinth walked in. She was old, even for a Corvani. Her skin was permanently gray from age and stress. "Commander," she said in her dry voice, "I trust you have read the mission files." "Yes, Admiral, but I have questions." She sat down across from him. "Ask." "Why are we worried about humans? They are new, they have few ships, their weapons are basic compared to ours." Admiral Corinth was quiet for a long moment. Then she touched a control on the table. The room filled with holographic images, ships burning in space, planets under attack, bodies floating in the void. "These are from the vegan wars," she said. 3 months ago, the vegan empire attacked a human colony. They sent 200 ships against a mining station with 50 defenders. Zephyros studied the images. The humans lost. The humans won. That made no sense. Zephyros looked at the numbers again. How? That is what we need to know. The survivors tell impossible stories. They say humans do not fight like other species. They say humans fight like demons. The Admiral changed the display. Now it showed a human face. The creature looked soft and weak. It had only 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. No natural weapons, no armor, no obvious advantages. "This is Captain Sarah Chen," the Admiral continued. "She commands a ship called the Indomitable. They are responding to a distress call from Kepler 442b. Pirates are attacking the mining colony there. And you want me to watch? I want you to understand. If humans are as dangerous as the reports say, we need to know how and why. If they are not, we need to know that too." Zephyros nodded. It made sense. The hegemony survived by knowing everything about everyone. Information was power. "How do I get aboard their ship?" The Admiral smiled. It was not a nice smile. "They asked for an observer from the Council. They want to show off. They think we will be impressed by their tactics. Will we? That is what you will tell me." 2 days later, Zephyros stood in the docking bay of the human ship Indomitable. He had changed his skin to look more like the humans. 2 arms, 2 legs, smooth skin. It was uncomfortable, but it worked. The humans were loud. That was the first thing he noticed. They talked constantly. They laughed. They made jokes. Even when preparing for battle, they seemed relaxed. A human woman approached him. She was small compared to most species, but she moved with confidence. This had to be Captain Chen. "Welcome aboard," she said. "I'm Sarah Chen. You must be our observer." "I am Zephyros. Thank you for allowing me to witness your operations." She grinned. Humans showed their teeth when they were happy. It looked like a threat display, but Zephyros knew it was not meant that way. "Happy to have you. We'll be at Kepler in 6 hours. The briefing is in 3. You're welcome to attend." As Captain Chen walked away, Zephyros began to explore the ship. What he found confused him. The humans had advanced technology, yes, but not more advanced than other species. Their weapons were powerful, but not unique. Their armor was good, but not the best. So why were other species afraid of them? He found part of the answer in the ship's gym. Humans were exercising, but not normal exercise. They were hurting themselves on purpose, lifting heavy weights until their muscles screamed, fighting each other with practice weapons. One human, a large male, was hitting a heavy bag with his bare hands. His knuckles were bleeding, but he kept hitting, harder and harder. "Why do you hurt yourself?" Zephyros asked. The human looked at him. "Pain is just weakness leaving the body." That made no sense. Pain was a warning system. It told you to stop before you were damaged. Why would someone ignore it? Zephyros found more strange behavior in the ship's rec room. Humans were telling stories, but not normal stories. They were telling stories about battles they had lost, about friends who had died, about times they had been afraid. And they were laughing. "I remember when Martinez got his arm blown off on Titan," one human said. "He picked it up and beat 3 guys with it before he passed out." The others laughed like this was the funniest thing they had ever heard. Most of them told stories about victories, about times they were brave, about times they won. Humans seemed to prefer stories about suffering. The ship's alarm sounded. They were approaching Kepler 442b. Time for the briefing. Zephyros made his way to the briefing room. It was packed with humans in military uniforms. They looked relaxed. Some were making jokes. Others were cleaning weapons. A few were sleeping. Captain Chen took the stage. Behind her, a holographic display showed the planet below. It was under attack. 50,000 pirates had surrounded the mining colony. Their ships filled the sky. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Chen said, "we have a situation." The room went quiet. Every human was listening now. 50,000 razor-claw pirates. They've got the colony surrounded. 3,000 civilians trapped inside. No way in or out. She paused and looked around the room. "We have 3,000 Marines." Someone in the back shouted, "Sounds fair." The room exploded with laughter. Zephyros felt his skin color shift with confusion. These humans thought impossible odds were funny. What kind of species was this? Captain Chen let the laughter die down before continuing. The holographic display behind her showed more details about the enemy. Zephyros studied the numbers with growing alarm. This was not funny. This was suicide. The Razorclaw pirates were known across the galaxy. They were brutal fighters who showed no mercy. Their ships were fast and deadly. They had been raiding this sector for over 200 years. No one had ever beaten them in a straight fight. "The pirates have been there for 3 days, Captain Chen continued. They're dug in deep. Plasma cannons on the high ground, gunships in the air, force fields around their positions." A young human near the front raised her hand. "Ma'am, what about orbital support? They've got ion mines in the upper atmosphere. Any ship that tries to get close gets fried." Another human spoke up. "Ground assault? Only one landing zone. It's heavily defended. They'll see us coming from 50 kilometers away." Zephyros waited for someone to suggest calling for backup, or negotiating, or finding another way. Instead, a human with scars on his face asked, "What's the timeline?" "Civilians have food and water for maybe 12 hours. After that?" Captain Chen shrugged. The scarred human grinned. "So we need to work fast." More laughter. Zephyros felt sick. These humans were discussing their own deaths like it was a game. "Sir," Zephyros said, raising one of his disguised hands, "perhaps we should contact the hegemony fleet. They could be here in 6 days with enough ships to—" 6 days? Captain Chen looked at him like he had said something stupid. "The civilians will be dead in 12 hours. "But the odds? The odds don't matter," she said simply. "They need help now." A human woman with sergeant stripes stood up. "Ma'am, what's the plan?" The display changed to show the landing zone. It was a narrow valley surrounded by cliffs. The pirates had plasma cannons on both sides. Any ship that tried to land would be caught in crossfire. "We land right in the middle of their guns," she said. The room was quiet for a moment. Then, someone started to chuckle. Soon the whole room was laughing again. "That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard," a young Marine called out. "Thank you, Rodriguez," Captain Chen replied. "That's exactly why it might work." Zephyros did not understand. How was stupidity an advantage? "They expect us to be smart," Captain Chen explained. "They expect us to try to sneak around, find a back way in, use tricks and tactics. They're ready for smart." She pointed at the display. "But they're not ready for stupid. They're not ready for 3,000 humans who don't care about the odds." An older human with gray hair stood up. This was Sergeant Mackenzie. According to Zephyros's files, she had been in more battles than some species had years. "Ma'am, my boys are asking about the rules of engagement." Captain Chen's smile faded. "No rules, Sergeant. They came here to hurt innocent people. We're here to stop them. Whatever it takes." "Copy that, ma'am." The briefing continued for another hour. Zephyros listened with growing disbelief. The humans were not just planning to attack impossible odds. They were planning to attack them in the most direct way possible. No stealth, no clever tactics, just raw aggression. "Landing in 30 minutes, Captain Chen announced. "Gear up." The humans filed out of the room, still talking and joking. Zephyros followed them to the armory. What he saw there made his skin ripple with shock. The humans were not just putting on armor. They were preparing for war in ways he had never seen. Others were looking at pictures of families. A few were praying to various human gods, but most were still joking. "Hey Martinez," one human called out. "Try not to lose any body parts this time." "No promises," Martinez replied. "But if I do, I'm using them as weapons." More laughter. Zephyros approached Sergeant Mackenzie. She was checking her rifle with practiced movements. "Sergeant, may I ask you a question?" She looked up. Her eyes were hard but not unfriendly. "Shoot." "Why are your people not afraid?" She thought about that for a moment. "Who says we're not afraid?" But the laughing, the jokes. "Fear is just another feeling," she said, "like being hungry or tired. You don't let it stop you from doing what needs to be done." "But the odds." "Kid, let me tell you something about odds." She put down her rifle and looked at him directly. "Every human who ever lived faced impossible odds. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Ice ages, volcanoes, diseases, predators. We survived all of it." She picked up her rifle again. "Know why?" Zephyros shook his head. "Because we don't know when to quit. Other species are smart enough to know when they're beaten. We're too stupid to figure it out." The ship shuddered as it entered atmosphere. Red lights began to flash. Over the comm system, Captain Chen's voice announced, 30 seconds to landing. "Remember, people, we're not here to win. We're here to make sure they lose everything." Zephyros felt the ship's engines scream as they dove toward the planet. Through the small windows, he could see plasma fire lighting up the sky. The pirates were shooting at them with everything they had. The humans around him were not praying anymore. They were not writing letters. They were checking weapons one last time. Others were quietly singing songs Zephyros did not recognize. The ship hit the ground hard. Emergency lights flickered. Somewhere in the hull, metal groaned under stress. "Go, go, go!" Sergeant Mackenzie yelled. The cargo doors opened, and humans poured out. Zephyros followed, his disguised form stumbling in the artificial gravity. Outside, the world was chaos. Plasma beams cut through the air like deadly rain. The sound of gunfire was overwhelming. Explosions shook the ground. The landing zone was exactly what Captain Chen had promised. A killing field. And the humans were laughing. Not all of them. Some were screaming orders. Others were calling for medics. But scattered through the chaos, Zephyros could hear laughter. Humans were charging into hell itself, and some of them thought it was funny. A plasma beam struck near Zephyros's feet. The heat nearly cooked him through his disguise. He dove for cover behind a piece of wreckage. Next to him, A human Marine was setting up a heavy weapon. His name tape read Johnson. He was grinning as plasma fire flew over his head. "This is insane," Zephyros shouted over the noise. Johnson looked at him with bright eyes. "I know. Isn't it great?" That was when Zephyros began to understand. These humans were not brave in spite of the danger. They were excited because of it. They did not see impossible odds as a reason to quit. They saw them as a challenge to overcome. And somehow, impossibly, they were winning. The battle had been going for 2 hours. Zephyros crouched behind a broken piece of transport, watching humans fight in ways that broke every rule of war he knew. A human squad was pinned down by 3 razor-claw gun positions. Normal tactics said they should call for support, wait for backup, find another route. Instead, they did something that made Zephyros's blood freeze. They charged. Not all at once. That would have been suicide. Instead, one human would run forward while the others gave covering fire. When that human got hit or found cover, another would leap up and continue the charge. Then another, then another. The Razor Claws were confused. Their plasma weapons were designed to stop organized attacks. But humans did not attack in organized ways. They attacked like a pack of wild animals, each one moving independently, but all working toward the same goal. "Martinez is down," someone yelled. Private Martinez, the same one the humans had joked about earlier, was lying in the dirt. His left arm was gone from the elbow down. Razor Claw plasma had cooked it off clean. Any normal soldier would be screaming. Martinez picked up his severed arm and threw it at the nearest pirate. "Take that, you ugly piece of trash," he shouted. Then he picked up his rifle with his remaining hand and kept shooting. Zephyros had studied many species in many wars. He had never seen anything like this. Humans treated wounds that would disable others as minor inconveniences. A razor-claw warrior dropped down from the cliffs above. These pirates were 7 feet tall and covered in natural armor. They had claws that could cut through steel. One of them could kill 5 normal soldiers. A human corporal named Davis was in its path. Davis was maybe 5.5 feet tall and looked like he weighed less than the alien's left arm. The Razor Claw roared and charged with claws extended. Davis smiled. Actually smiled. Then he did something impossible. Instead of running or shooting, he ran toward the alien. At the last second, he dove between its legs and came up behind it. Before the creature could turn around, Davis had wrapped his arms around its neck. "Sleepy time, big guy," Davis said calmly. The Razor Claw thrashed and clawed, trying to shake him off. Davis held on like his life depended on it, which it did. The alien's claws tore into his armor, drawing blood. Davis just squeezed harder. 30 seconds later, the Razor Claw collapsed. Davis stood up, bleeding from a dozen wounds, and picked up his rifle. "Anyone else want a hug?" he called out. Zephyros realized his mouth was hanging open. He had just watched a human kill a creature 3 times his size with nothing but his bare hands, and the human was making jokes about it. Across the battlefield, another squad was dealing with a Razor Claw bunker. The structure was built into the cliff face and protected by energy shields. Artillery could not touch it. Even the heaviest weapons would take hours to break through. The humans found a simpler solution. "I've got an idea," a sergeant named Kim announced. She gathered up every explosive device her squad was carrying, grenades, demo charges, even the power cells from their equipment. She tied them all together into one massive bomb. "Kim, what are you doing?" her lieutenant asked. "Making a delivery," she replied. Before anyone could stop her, she picked up the improvised bomb and started running toward the bunker. Plasma fire lit up around her. She dodged some shots, took others on her armor, and kept running. The Razor Claws in the bunker realized what she was doing. They poured everything they had at her. energy beams, projectile weapons, even thrown rocks. Kim stumbled, fell, got back up, and kept running. She made it to the bunker's entrance and jammed the bomb against the shield generator. Then she pressed the detonator. The explosion shook the ground for kilometers. When the dust cleared, the bunker was gone. So was Sergeant Kim. Her squad was quiet for about 10 seconds. Then someone said, "Kim always was crazy." "Yeah," another replied. "We're going to miss her." Then they went back to fighting. Zephyros had seen soldiers sacrifice themselves before, but they usually did it with tears and prayers and final messages to their families. These humans treated it like another job that needed doing. The strangest part was what happened next. Instead of being demoralized by Kim's death, the other humans seemed to get more dangerous. They fought harder, took bigger risks, as if losing a friend made them angry instead of sad. "Razor claws don't understand grief," Sergeant Mackenzie explained when Zephyros asked about it. She was bandaging a wound on her leg while talking. "They think death makes you weak. For humans, death makes us mad." A explosion nearby showered them with dirt. Mackenzie did not even look up. "When one of us dies, the rest of us have two choices," she continued. "We can honor their memory by giving up, or we can honor it by making the enemy pay. Guess which one we usually pick." As if to prove her point, a human medic ran past them carrying a wounded soldier. The medic was also wounded. A deep cut across his forehead was bleeding into his eyes. But he kept running toward the medical station. "Shouldn't he treat his own wounds first?" Zephyros asked. Mackenzie looked at him like he had asked why water was wet. "Doc's hurt worse than he is," she said simply. That was another thing Zephyros was beginning to understand. Humans had a strange relationship with pain. They seemed to see it as a challenge rather than a warning. The more something hurt, the more determined they became to push through it. A group of razor-claw gunships swept over the battlefield, strafing the humans with energy weapons. Most soldiers would take cover and wait for the attack to pass. The humans shot back. With rifles, against flying gunships, it should have been useless. But the gunships started taking damage, not from the small arms fire. That was barely scratching their armor. They were taking damage because the humans were not giving up. Every shot that missed was followed by another shot, and another, and another. The constant fire was not hurting the ships, but it was confusing their targeting systems. The gunships started missing their attacks. Then one of them flew too low, trying to get a better angle. A human with a rocket launcher was waiting for it. The gunship exploded in a ball of fire. The others pulled back to a safer distance. "That's how you do it," someone yelled. More cheering from the humans. They had just brought down a military gunship with infantry weapons, and they were celebrating like they had won a game. Zephyros looked at the timer on his equipment. They had been fighting for 4 hours now. The humans had taken heavy casualties. At least a third of their people were dead or wounded. Their ammunition was running low. Their armor was failing. By every logical measure, they should be losing. Instead, they were winning. The razor-claw defensive line was cracking. Their perfectly planned killing field was turning into a nightmare. These humans did not fight the way anyone expected. They did not follow rules. They did not care about casualties. They just kept coming. And somehow, against all odds, it was working. 6 hours into the battle, everything went wrong at once. A razor-claw counterattack had broken through the human left flank. Plasma artillery was raining down from the cliffs. Worst of all, enemy reinforcements were landing. 3 more pirate ships with fresh troops. Zephyros found himself trapped in a collapsed bunker with Sergeant Mackenzie and 2 other humans. Enemy forces surrounded them on all sides. There was no way out. Mackenzie was badly hurt. A piece of shrapnel had gone through her chest armor. She was breathing in short, painful gasps. Blood soaked her uniform. "Sarge, we need to get you to a medic," one of the humans said. His name was Collins, and he could not have been older than 20 standard years. Medics are all dead, kid, Mackenzie replied. She coughed, and blood came up. Besides, I'm not going anywhere. The other human, Yamamoto, was watching the entrance with his rifle ready. Maybe 30 or 40 hostiles out there. Any ideas? Collins asked. Mackenzie laughed. It was a wet, painful sound. Yeah, we killed them all. Zephyros stared at her. You are seriously injured. There are 40 enemies, and 3 of you. This is impossible. Mackenzie looked at him with eyes that were getting dim from blood loss. Kid, you still don't get it, do you? Get what? We're humans. Impossible is what we do. Outside, he could hear the razor claws moving into position. They were being careful, which was smart. Cornered humans were dangerous humans. Tell me something, Mackenzie said to Zephyros. Where's your species from? Corvanus Prime. It's a peaceful world. Perfect climate, no predators, abundant resources. Nice, she said. Easy place to live. Yes, we evolved to be intelligent and cooperative. Our world gave us everything we needed. Mackenzie nodded. That's the difference. You know what Earth gave us? Zephyros shook his head. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanoes that blocked out the sun. Diseases that killed half the population. Predators that hunted us like food. Weather that could freeze or cook you depending on the season. She coughed again. More blood. But you survived, Zephyros said. We did more than survive. We thrived. You know why? Collins was still watching the entrance, but Zephyros could tell he was listening too. This was important. Because we learned something your species never had to learn. We learned that the universe doesn't care about you. It doesn't owe you anything. If you want to live, you have to fight for it, every single day. An explosion nearby shook dust from the ceiling. Other species fight to survive, Mackenzie continued. That's smart. But humans don't fight to survive. What do you fight for then? She smiled through the pain. We fight to win. Big difference. I don't understand. Surviving means you're willing to accept whatever the universe gives you. Winning means you take what you want and make the universe accept it. Yamamoto called softly from the entrance. They're moving in. 2 minutes, maybe less. Mackenzie tried to sit up straighter. It was clearly painful, but she managed it. Collins, give me your grenades. Sarge? All of them, and your sidearm. What's the plan? Same plan we always use. I'm going to walk out there and kill as many of those ugly sons of bitches as I can. When I go down, you two are going to charge out screaming and finish the job. Zephyros felt his skin color shift with shock. That's not a plan. That's suicide. Mackenzie looked at him with something that might have been pity. See, that's where you're wrong. Suicide is giving up. This is just a really aggressive way of winning. She checked her rifle one more time. The weapon was covered in dirt and blood. But it still worked. Humans built their tools to be as tough as they were. Let me tell you about Earth, kid. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. Not just people who lived through bad times, people who thrived during them. People who looked at impossible odds and said, watch me. Collins was checking his own weapons. His hands were steady, but Zephyros could see the fear in his eyes. The young human was scared, but he was going to follow Mackenzie anyway. Our whole planet was a test, Mackenzie continued. For millions of years, Earth tried to kill us. Disease, starvation, war, natural disasters, everything you could imagine. And every time, we adapted. We got stronger. We got smarter. We got meaner. But surely you had help. Cooperation. Civilization. Oh, we cooperated all right. But only so we could fight bigger enemies. We spent thousands of years at war with each other. Not because we were evil, because we were practicing. Yamamoto held up his hand. The enemy was almost ready to attack. Mackenzie struggled to her feet. She was dying. Zephyros could see that. But she moved with purpose and determination. "You want to know the real secret?" she asked. "The thing that makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy." "Yes. We're not trying to be heroes. We're not trying to be noble. We're just too stubborn to quit. When something tells us we can't do something, we take it personally." The first razor claw appeared in the entrance. Mackenzie shot it in the face without hesitation. "And right now," she said, pulling the pins on 3 grenades at once, "these pirates are telling us we can't win." She charged out of the bunker, screaming something in an ancient human language. Zephyros later learned it was a battle cry that meant, "Remember the Alamo." He had no idea what an Alamo was, but the way she said it made his blood run cold. The grenades exploded. Plasma fire lit up the area outside. Zephyros could hear Mackenzie's rifle firing again and again, then screaming, some of it human, most of it razor claw. When the noise stopped, Collins looked at Yamamoto. "Ready?" "Always." They charged out together, yelling like madmen. Zephyros followed, though every instinct told him not to. What he saw outside made no sense. Mackenzie was dead, but she had taken at least 8 razor claws with her. Her body was surrounded by enemy corpses. She had fought until her last breath. Collins and Yamamoto were finishing off the survivors. The 2 young humans were outnumbered 10-1, but they were winning. The razor claws were retreating. "How?" Zephyros whispered. Collins heard him over the gunfire. "What? How are you winning? The odds were impossible." Collins grinned as he reloaded his rifle. "That's the thing about impossible odds. They only matter if you believe in them." He fired at a fleeing pirate. "We don't." That was when Zephyros finally understood. Humans did not see impossible situations as reasons to give up. They saw them as challenges that required creative solutions. Death was not something to be feared. It was just another obstacle to overcome. And somehow, through sheer bloody-minded determination, they made it work. The battle ended 12 hours after it began. Zephyros stood in the ruins of what had once been the Razor Claw main base. Smoke drifted up from burned-out vehicles. The air smelled of ozone from discharged plasma weapons. Bodies lay scattered across the battlefield, most of them pirates. The humans had won. It should have been impossible, but they had done it anyway. Captain Chen found him standing near a destroyed gun emplacement. She looked tired, and her armor was scorched, but she was smiling. "Casualty report just came in," she said. "We lost 40% of our people." Zephyros felt sick. 40%? That's terrible. Shen looked at him with confusion. "Terrible? We just liberated 50,000 civilians and broke a pirate fleet that's been terrorizing this sector for 200 years. 40% casualties for a victory like that? That's not terrible. That's a bargain." Other humans were moving around the battlefield. Some were treating the wounded. Others were gathering equipment. A few were digging graves for their dead. But they were not mourning. Not the way other species would. They were working, efficiently and quietly, but without the weight of grief that should have been crushing them. "How do you do it?" Zephyros asked. "Do what?" "Lose so many people and still function. Any other species would be broken by these losses." Captain Shen sat down on a piece of rubble. She was quiet for a long moment. "You know what the difference is between a human and every other species in the galaxy?" she finally asked. Zephyros had heard this question several times now. Each human had given a different answer. "What?" "Other species see death as an ending. For humans, death is just another way of winning." She pointed toward the graves being dug. Every one of those people knew they might die today. They came anyway, not because they wanted to die, because they wanted their deaths to mean something. A young Marine walked past, carrying a wounded comrade. Both of them were smiling about something. Sergeant Mackenzie told me something before she died, Zephyros said. She said humans fight to win, not just to survive. What did she mean? Captain Chen nodded. Mackenzie was a smart woman. She understood something most species never learn. Which is? Captain Chen nodded. Surviving, accepting whatever the universe gives you. Winning means making the universe accept what you want. She stood up and brushed dust off her armor. Every other species in the galaxy fights defensively. They protect what they have. They try to minimize losses. They look for the safest path to victory. A human medic ran past them, heading toward another wounded soldier. He was bleeding from a head wound, but ignored it. We don't just protect what we have. We take what we want. We don't minimize losses. We maximize damage to the enemy. And we never ever look for the safe path. But the casualties are the price of victory. Real victory, not just survival. Captain Chen started walking toward the landing zone where the human ships were waiting. Zephyros followed. Let me ask you something, she said as they walked. How many wars has your species won? Zephyros thought about it. We have participated in several successful defensive actions. We helped repel the vegan invasion of the outer colonies. We assisted in the blockade of the hostile zone. Participated? Helped? Assisted? Captain Chen shook her head. When was the last time your people won a war by themselves? The question made Zephyros uncomfortable. The Corvani were observers and advisors. They did not fight wars alone. We prefer diplomatic solutions. Most species do. Know why? Because war is wasteful and destructive. Because war is hard, really hard. It requires you to be willing to lose everything in order to gain something. Most species aren't willing to pay that price. They reached the landing zone. Human ships were loading wounded soldiers and civilians. The operation was efficient and organized, despite the massive casualties. Humans are different, Captain Chen continued. We've been paying the hard price for millions of years. It's normal for us. A civilian, one of the people they had rescued, approached Captain Chen. She was an elderly Zentari with tears in her eyes. Captain, I wanted to thank you. My grandchildren were in that colony. If you hadn't come... Just doing our job, ma'am, Captain Chen replied. The civilian looked around at the human casualties. But so many of your people died. How can you call this worth it? Captain Chen's expression became serious. Ma'am, 37 of my people died today, but 50,000 of yours lived. In my book, that's the best trade anyone could ask for. The civilian walked away, still crying. But now she was crying with gratitude instead of fear. Zephyros realized something important. Other species would have calculated the cost differently. They would have weighed the lives of their own soldiers against the lives of strangers. Most would have concluded that the risk was too high. Humans did not think that way. They saw people who needed help, and they helped. The cost to themselves was secondary. Captain, may I ask you one more question? Sure. What happens now? Will humanity expand its territory, conquer other species? Captain Chen laughed. Conquer? Kid, we don't want to conquer anyone. That would mean we'd have to run their governments and manage their problems. Sounds like way too much work. Then, what do you want? She thought about it as they walked up the ramp into her ship. We want to be left alone to do our thing. We want bad guys to leave good people alone. And we want everyone to understand that if they pick a fight with humanity, we will end it. As the ship lifted off, Zephyros looked out at the battlefield below. The Razorclaw fleet was gone, destroyed or scattered. The civilians were safe. The pirate threat to this sector had been eliminated. All because a group of humans had decided that impossible odds were just another problem to solve. 3 days later, Zephyros sat in Admiral Corinth's office, writing his report. The words came slowly. How could he explain what he had seen? Recommendation, he wrote. Immediate alliance with humanity. Classification, essential for hegemony survival. He paused and thought about everything he had witnessed. Then he continued. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not calculate odds or minimize losses. They do not seek the safest path to victory. Instead, they identify what they want to achieve and pursue it with total commitment, regardless of cost. This makes them extremely dangerous to their enemies and extremely valuable as allies. They will sacrifice anything, including their own lives, to protect those they consider friends. More importantly, humans do not see impossible situations as reasons to surrender. They see them as challenges to overcome. This fundamental difference in psychology gives them a significant advantage in any conflict. Alternative recommendation, pray they never turn their attention to us. Zephyros finished the report and sealed it. Then he walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were spreading across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as protectors. They would find more people who needed help, more impossible situations that needed solving, and they would solve them, no matter what it cost. The galaxy had found its apex predators, but these predators were not interested in hunting. They were interested in making sure nothing else hunted the innocent. For species like the Corvani, who valued intelligence and cooperation, this was the best possible outcome. For species like the razor claws, who preyed on the weak, it was their worst nightmare. Zephyros smiled to himself. He had a feeling the galaxy was about to become a much safer place.